Okay, ICT Integration Workshop 3.3, we're going to be talking about digital duty of care. Now, we've already covered cybersafety and looked at digital citizenship and social media in lecture 3.1 and talked about classroom management. But when I'm talking about cybersafety, there are some things that you can go through with your class about how to be safe online. Now, I'm going to share this document with you, which is cyber safety scenarios. Now, what I do with my students is I get them to read through. I've got 12 scenarios here, which probably, to be honest, need some review and looked at. But the students have to look at each scenario and then decide on what they think the situation is. So it might be someone has deleted, someone's gone to the toilet, left their computer open without putting it on locking it, putting on the password, and their friend has then moved all their documents into the trash. The students come back and just deleted the trash before their friend could tell them, "Oh, I've just done a joke on you," and so the students lost all their work. Now, who's at fault there? It seems like the one student who didn't put their password on is at fault, and the other student is being a bully, basically. Now, there's 12 scenarios in here. I'm happy to share this with you. What I'd get the students to do is we actually bring them up, and as a class, I share them, and then they discuss them in small groups, and they just discuss each scenario. We go through the scenarios as a whole class. Then what I do is I give the students a handwritten essay. Now, I know I love ICT and technology. I get them to do it as an essay because that way they can't use technology. They can't go and look up what they think the answer is. Instead, they have to use whatever's in their brain. You could do an essay on the computer but lock down the internet or so on, but I just like doing it as a handwritten essay. It also allows me to look at the handwriting because there's a lot of stuff you can learn from looking at students' handwriting. The three things the students have to do is explain what the scenario is that's taking place and work out what's being done and what's gone wrong. They have to reflect on how each of the victim got themselves in the situation and why each person did what they did, and also what you think that the victim and the other people are feeling, and then what's the advice they've got. What advice does the student have for the people in the situation, and what's the exit point? In other words, for the student that had all their stuff deleted, what was their exit point? What could they have done to prevent it? And the exit point is obviously lock their computer. The other one might be when she walked back in before the person had a chance to. First of all, don't do it to start with, but speak to the friend before she had a chance to delete the work out of the recycling bin. Other things, there's no exit point. Like if you've got someone who is just bullying you online, the exit point for you might be go and speak to an adult. Right? This is for the students, obviously, or contact the police, depending on how serious it is. Sometimes it's just a once-off thing that's happened and you have to deal with it. So you didn't have an exit point. So here is my marking strategy. So I'll give my students a rubric so I can decide exactly how they're going to get marked. And then I've got here the list of the different scenarios. Now I'm happy to share that with everybody. It will be in your documents to start off with. This is how I hand it out. I hand it out as an A3 double-sided. So it's got the information here and then the rubric and then lots of space to write, and I hand them the essay. Each kid on the day of the essay task is handed one of the 12 cyber safety tasks. It means that each student then it doesn't matter, they can ask questions in class. Because I've got 12, means that really you're only going to have 2 or 3 students who got the same one. So if one student asks a question, you can then go and help them. It drives lots and lots of discussion in class, and the students get a lot out of it, and they bring out some things they might not have thought about. It also opens up some topics which may be kind of sensitive. Now, your digital duty of care. Here's posing some questions for you. If a student hurts themselves in the yard while you're on yard duty, do you have a duty of care for them? Well, the answer is of course. You're on the yard. You've got you're actually in charge. You need to send them to sick pay. Pretty simple. What about if the student's left school, falls over while you're driving, and you happen to see it? So you might be driving past or riding past. Do you have a duty of care for that child? Now, this is where it starts getting a bit grey. Technically, it's not from 9 to 5. It's not in a time when you're meant to be looking after them. It's not on school premises. Technically, you could keep driving. I mean, no one's going to know. But do you, as part of the school, do you think you've got a duty of care for them? What about if you're in the pub in the country town and one of the students is in the pub drinking? Now, this is actually quite a common thing. I can't tell you what the answer is, and it would depend on the town, the situation. It might be the student lives at the pub, it might be the student's actually 18. And different rules happen in the country as to in the city. Again, it's a very grey area. Next one is, what happens if you've got a child who's staying over? So your kid, one of their friends stays over for a sleepover and they hurt themselves. Do you have a duty of care for them then? The answer is pretty much yes, right? Whilst they're staying with you and they're under your care, you have to look after them. So this is the next question. This is where it gets harder. What about if you're on Facebook? I'm just going to use Facebook, but you're on social media and you keep an eye on your child who's on social media, which is a great thing to do. You should have your own kids on. If you're on Facebook, you should be on Facebook as well. But what about if one of their friends starts talking about suicide, right? So to your child on a page that you can see, or it might be your godson, or it might be one of your nieces or nephews, or it might be a student you're connected to. If they're talking about something on social media, do you have a duty of care that you have to look after it? And this is the question that's really hard. The best way of looking at this is go back to when the child was staying over your house. If the child's staying over your house, you have a duty of care of them. If you choose to have a student on your social media, then you pretty much have a digital duty of care. If they're putting up photos of being drunk, technically you've got a duty of care to look after them, right? You should be reporting it to their parents. Or if they're talking about suicide, then you should be on there and looking after them. If it comes out that that child has committed suicide and you are a friend of them and that they posted on their wall at a time when you were on your Facebook or your social media, well, was there something you should have done about it? You might not have even read it, but so the question is then, the things that you're doing, you need to either remove the students off your Facebook, or take on the digital duty of care for the students on Facebook. In other words, if you've got students coming over your house, then you either basically look after them when they're coming over your house, or don't let them come over your house. So on social media, the other thing is whether or not you're public or private. This is a choice you really need to make a decision on, right? If you're choosing to have your social media private, then lock it down. Make sure that only your friends can see what you post and not friends of friends. Well, it's that way, and have everything set to as private as possible. Kids can't find you, you're not searchable. If that's the case, then you can put up your drunk photos, your inappropriate photos, your poor taste posts, all those things, because it's private. If I can honestly say that our HR person, if you're applying to a job at our school, first thing they do is search you online, not just on Facebook, but do a Google search for you and see what comes up. If you've got drunk photos, pretty much we'll go, well, it doesn't seem appropriate. All right. If you choose to have your social media public, and mine is, then you need to maintain it as if your principal is a friend of yours and all the parents are a friend of yours on social media. So you have to be very careful what you post, what your friends post, what you like, and everything. This is a really serious thing, and it's really dangerous because if you might be posting something about students in your school. You might be posting something that you don't, had a crappy day at work today. Well, because of this, if a parent sees it, and they may be just a friend of one of your friends, but you just don't realise, you can get into a lot of trouble. So you really need to think about that. All right. Also, think about this. You're now a teacher 24/7. You are always a teacher. If you do not agree with this, don't be a teacher. Right? It means that if you're going to the pub, you need to be a teacher. If you're going to a restaurant, you need to be thinking that you don't know who's sitting on the next table, and you're talking about students in your class to your friends or your partner, and saying, that one of the students in class today said this. You don't know if their parents or friends of their parents are sitting at the next table. Confidential material should stay confidential, right? Students' names, what happens at school, what's said in the staff room. You need to be very, very aware that in today's modern society, anything you say, anything you post can be picked up by anybody else. And hey, it's Adelaide, pretty much. It's not 6 degrees of separation in Adelaide, it's about 2.5. All right, so you always need to be careful about that. If you're going to the cricket or the football and you're yelling abuse at the umpire, I guarantee you there will be somebody within 50 metres of you who would know somebody that you're related to or someone at the school. So you need to be very, very careful in that. If you don't like it, don't take up teaching, right? Pretty much. And I may be speaking out of turn. Once again, I'm a teacher 24/7, so I have to be thinking about what I say, but you need to be always sensible about what you're doing 24/7. If you're going to go and do something, go out and drink with friends, make sure that you're in control of yourself, or that you're going to a place where you're not going to be rocking up with other people or people that are going to be parents or something. Can be quite hard, can be quite difficult, but you need to be responsible. It's the same as football players. If they go out drinking and do something stupid, the media gets hold of it, that player has to pay a fine. Teachers the same, we just have to pay a fine. Okay, your discussion board for this week. You may have students or young family members on your Facebook or communication media. Do you think you have a digital duty of care? Now, I'm fine for you to say, no, not at all. I'm fine for you to say, now that you've said this, I think maybe it's just your own opinion. Next is, as we move to more knowledge and collection and social constructivist styles, do we need to shift our lessons to include more content creation rather than content creation, right? In other words, do we actually really want our students making something, right? Are they creating a website, or do you want them curating a website, curating all the information? We are now moving to a point where there's a lot more data gathering and gathering of resources and information rather than just creating it from scratch. So you need to be thinking about that. And finally, number 3, more and more time spent online. Should your curriculum area be limited to the walls of the classroom? Now, this is 2 ways, Do you think you should get out in the fresh air and not be in the classroom? But also, do you think you should be online? Should you be using augmented reality? Should you be using social media? Should you be, if you're studying First World War, should you jump online and look at Twitter feeds because people are posting 100 years on from the First World War? Should you be Skyping the people who are writing the textbooks, or Skyping people who are doing the research and actually get primary research done in the classroom? All right, so that's the thing for this week. You'll need to post the discussion board by next Sunday. I've already marked the last one. I'll finish that off. Your e-portfolio should be doing quite well now, and everything you post in the discussion board can you also please copy and paste to your e-portfolio, so it's all collected in the same spot. Now, this week we covered National Professional Standards 4, 5 and 7 because we're looking at maintaining a safe and supportive environment, giving feedback through the mail merging and through online, and also how we get engaged professionally with colleagues. Now, as I said, you can engage with professionally with colleagues through professional associations, which are on Facebook or other social media. So this is why it's related. All right, and that is all for this week.
Ow.